symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Can Chris Hero Save Wrestling? And of course, we couldn't do it without the man himself, Mr. Chris Hero. Chris, how are you, man?
Conrad Thompson, I am fantabulous. How are you doing, my friend?
Man, better than I deserve, because I'm getting to watch some wrestling today with the actual wrestling genius. I'm pretty excited about this. I had the great pleasure of watching a football game once with a permanent SEC football captain, and he watched wrestling he watched football in a different way. And I felt like my football IQ went up. And when I think about my wrestling IQ going up, I can't imagine wanting to watch something with someone else more than I want to watch this with you. And today we've got a great match to watch together, don't we?
Yeah, we do. This is my second to last match with Bryan Danielson, but it would be my last match with him in PWG. Somebody that for over the course of about 6 years, we wrestled pretty much anywhere and everywhere, and is someone to this day that I hold in very, very high regard. You've heard all the stories about PWG and you've seen the clips. It's just an electric atmosphere, and this was when PWG was just kind of kicking into gear. Just a very special match. And when I did an Ask Me Anything about this match on my subreddit a while back, and I put out requests for which match people wanted to see and hear me talk about. And this was overwhelmingly the most requested match. And I thought I would speak to the fine folks over at High Spots who put the match up for free. And I thought you might not have seen this match before. And I know that I hadn't seen it in well over a decade. I probably watched it a couple times right after it happened, but I have resisted the urge to watch this match back. So I figure you and I could see this with fresh eyes and have a little chit chat about it and just kind of see where we go.
I know there's a lot to talk about, and we're certainly going to, but give everybody just an idea of who Bryan Danielson, the performer, was, because I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who have only ever seen his WWE work, but I mean, this is a guy who won Wrestler of the Year award over and over and over, according to Dave Meltzer. He was one of the best talents, not just in the independents, but in the history of wrestling, right?
Yeah, I think so. He is what a lot of people would describe as a wrestler's wrestler.
Yeah.
He broke in through Shawn Michaels. He moved down to Texas and trained there and was a part of a very famous class of students along with Spanky, Brian Kendrick, and Lance Cade. This other guy named Shooter Schultz. All of them got signed to developmentals and went to Memphis. And I think that's where a lot of us started hearing the name Bryan Danielson, Brian Kendrick, or Spanky and American Dragon. And they weren't around very long before they hit the independent scene. And the two of those in particular just had some incredible matches with one another. And I think they were kind of like the polar opposite of one another. You had Spanky, this, loudmouth, crass, sports entertainery type character. And then you had the no nonsense, no frills American Dragon, who actually did wear a mask for a while in Memphis Championship Wrestling, which is really funny to look back on. But it's funny to see what he became with the Yes movement and all of that stuff. And just to see him holding up those championships at WrestleMania in New Orleans, to come from the guy that everybody just, he's just a technical guy. He doesn't have any personality, et cetera, et cetera. But he was always a very easygoing, down to earth kind of guy. He was always one of the favorites in the locker room. He had a way about him of causing mischief. He would kind of set guys up, to be ribbed, not in any kind of malicious way, but just in an entertaining kind of way. And especially when you're having these, hard matches and in front of big crowds and just these drives, it helps to have someone to lighten that mood. And then also just to have someone that you respect so greatly between the ropes rather. And Bryan was always a fun guy to spend time with. And then also just an honor to share the ring with him and just to figure out what you can do in there.
Well, what I've always been fascinated with is his wrestling brain. I saw an interview with him years ago where he says It almost hurt his feelings to watch old tapes of himself because he felt like he had evolved as a performer. And he would say, "Oh, I can't believe I did that." And he said this in the middle of a run where, according to the Observer, the Most Outstanding Wrestler award, which was won by guys like Ric Flair and Kobashi and Misawa and Benoit and Angle, he won that award in 06, 07, 08, 09, and 10. And this is a guy who was still very critical of his work. And for some reason, Chris, I feel like you guys have that in common.
Yeah, I spoke about this a while ago about holding yourself to a higher standard. And I think that's exactly the type of performer that Bryan was and that Bryan is. He can look back on his old work with new eyes and just think like, oh my God, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or I missed this opportunity, and it's hard sometimes when you're that critical to enjoy your old matches. I mean, there's some of mine that I go back on and you just cringe at the choices that you made or the things that you said. It's a very funny dynamic to go back on. I try my best not to be too critical because I want to go back and watch these matches and enjoy these things. I'm sure I'll have a moment or two during this match that we're going to watch that is going to make me feel remorseful. You're just like, oh, what was I thinking? Oh man, don't look at me. Don't look at my eyes. Right. But at the same time, it's just such an awesome opportunity that we have to not only re-experience these things, but just to show these matches to a new audience. And I'm hoping a lot of people listening to this haven't seen this match. And I hope that by talking about it, we encourage you to not only watch this match with our commentary, but to go back and watch other things from this era. This is from the fall of 2009, which to me could seem like yesterday, but it's 12 years ago, right? 2009 seems like, man, that was a very pivotal year in my career. My most pivotal up until that point, for sure. Just the things I was going through at the time professionally and the places I was working. But to sit back here and to look back and enjoy that stuff and just not take things too seriously, not beat myself up too much, but just to also just share this with everybody else. I think it's a really cool opportunity for all of us.
By the way, if you haven't already, you should go subscribe to the HotSpotsWrestlingNetwork.com. I do. It's roughly what you pay for the WWE Network, but there's so much great content on there, not just wrestling, but old shoot interviews, and they've got a ton of content on there. Can't recommend it enough, but you don't need it for this. They've made this match free, and you've actually got something pretty cool coming up with Hotspots you might want to talk about, right?
I actually very much I do. Yeah. Thank you for that, Conrad. Good lead in. This should be dropping Wednesday morning. So that would mean Wednesday night on February the 24th. I'm going to do my first ever virtual signing. So I've held off on doing any type of signing or any type of appearance. I just haven't felt comfortable traveling or being around people aside from my, immediate family and friends. So this was just a great opportunity for me to finally go out there. High Spots is in Orlando for the week, I believe, and I've had a good relationship with them for years. Michael's always been very good to me. I really appreciate their contributions to pro wrestling in general,
Yes.
with all the videos they've shot over the years. They're just some of the good guys in pro wrestling, and just a very grassroots movement. So I am heading over to the hotel by the Orlando airport, and I'm going to do a sign it live where you can head to highspotsauctions.com, I believe, and put in an order. I think the turnbuckles are sold out, but they've got all kinds of pictures. I'm going to have actually a couple ring-worn items up for auction, which is something that I never do. So that's kind of cool. But it's just, I think 6 p.m. is when we go live on the High Spots Facebook. So it's just going to be cool to interact with some fans for the first time in a very long time. I really miss that. when I was traveling on the weekends to do shows, I really cherished my time at the merch table, and not just to sell shirts and pictures and make money, but just to connect with people. And
Yep.
you'd have your regulars that you would see all the time. And, you'd see some just new people and people that were going to pro wrestling shows for their first time. It's very important for me to be able to connect with my fans and just to chat. And it's killing me not to wrestle right now. But I guess that's better than risking my health and the health of others to go and perform right now. So until things clear up a little bit more, that's going to be on the back burner. But I am excited to do this Sign It Live tonight. So if you're listening to this on Wednesday afternoon, 6 p.m. tonight, come check it out. Watch me sign some stuff, buy something if you want. If not, just stream it and watch me talk a little shit.
There you go. And you can find Chris, of course, online on all your social media channels and, of course, highspotsauctions.com. But you've got a link below right now here on adfreeshows.com where you can actually watch this match free on the High Spots Wrestling Network. And again, I can't recommend it enough. Our producer, Stan, here and I recently had a conversation about this. Stan signed up. He loves it too. I think it might be one of the better values in wrestling. It's up there with adfreeshows.com and the network for sure. So without further ado, let's do a little bit of a countdown. What you'll do here is you'll click the link below, and this will be a 2-screen experience for you. I would encourage you to press mute on the video before you press play, and Chris and I will give you some alternate commentary, almost like it was a DVD extra maybe a generation ago. I'm ready, man. I'm at all zeros and ready to roll. Chris, you want to give us a countdown and we'll get going?
All right, let's get this. 3, 2, 1, play. Comrade, can you see that thing around my neck? Do you know what that is?
Let me, oh, wow. There you go. Here we are. Pro Wrestling Gorilla. Yeah. What do you have around your neck here?
Okay. So when I was living in Japan in the summer of 2000, actually it was early 2009 rather, at the Adidas shop, I found a hood, that would you normally be on a hooded sweatshirt. So it's a hood without the hooded sweatshirt. And I thought, man, that is quirky. The Japanese are usually up on their trends. So I got one of these. I sent it to my gear maker and I had him make one for me, just as something different. So I had this hood, but then I also had my robe over it. So oftentimes I would take the hood of my robe off and I would still have a hood on underneath. And I was always amused by it. And I don't know. It's just some people are like, what the hell are you wearing, dude?
I liked it. I thought it was cutting edge, baby. You're a fashion plate. You're the Cam Newton of wrestling.
Yes. You can see my wrist gauntlet. Or actually, no. Yeah, my wrist gauntlet on my right wrist. That says Misawa. It's in kanji. It's his name, of course. And that was made by my gear maker. Again, who was Misawa's gear maker? I'll have some cool stories about him, coming up. But in tribute, that summer, I was on the tour where Misawa passed away. And I just felt it's just a very, very surreal time. And I wanted to pay tribute to him in my work. I had been given permission by Misawa in the Noah office to say that he had passed the rolling elbow down to me.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I was using as my finish. And, he had passed away, but I just kind of wanted to carry on the legacy of his work and his work ethic. So just that little wrist gauntlet that I had was a bit of that.
I hate to dumb it down, but a lot of our listeners probably don't know who Misawa was. To make an American analogy, he was, and Lord, I realize this isn't even close, but in regards to respect for in-ring work, he was the Japanese Ric Flair of sorts, right? One of the highest regarded wrestlers you could have over there.
Certainly. He was the second Tiger Mask. He broke in through Giant Baba's All Japan Pro Wrestling. And not only was he an exceptional wrestler, he was also the creator, the man behind Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yes.
So he was an idol of mine, but he was also my boss when I went over and worked for Pro Wrestling Noah. So I felt a great deal of it was a great privilege for me to get to work with him and to work for him.
In 90s, All Japan tapes were regarded as being sort of the cream of the crop when it came to in-ring action, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just the intensity in the matches and then also the crowd reaction. It was just awesome. Whether, the Budokan shows, the Korakuen shows, they just had, some of the best pro wrestling around.
At this point, let's get back to the match here. We got Chris Hero and Bryan Danielson. You guys have both developed reputations for long matches. I mean, there was that summer, I don't know, probably 5 years before this, where Danielson was doing 60-minute, 90-minute matches in Ring of Honor. You had done the same in IWA. You both had become, Flair used to brag about being the 60-minute men or a 60-minute man. You guys were like 90-minute men at some point, right?
Yeah, that is correct. I had a 90-minute match with CM Punk that went the time limit. We had a sudden death fall. And I believe Bryan had a match with Aries.
That's right.
But this was before I was in Ring of Honor, so I'm not super
it was Aries.
That was supposed to go longer, but they called an audible to just end it a little bit shorter because, not every crowd is going to be patient for a 60-minute match, let alone a match that's 90 minutes or 2 hours.
What's the psychology of going into a long match like this? A lot of us are never going to actually be in a wrestling ring, but we're used to seeing TV matches that are 2, 3, 5, a long TV match is like 12 or 17 minutes. That would be a really long TV match these days. But when you're going nearly an hour or over an hour, how does that change your approach?
It's just strategy. You dumb everything down. You make everything bare bones, as basic as possible so that you are just telling these different stories of trying to grab a certain hold, trying to go after something. And then you just have to have the patience to follow along with this. And that's kind of what we're doing right here, where we're just feeling each other on the mat, filling each other out a little bit on the mat. And Bryan takes the first little strike there with a big drop kick out of a sequence. It just gives you the chance to grab a hold and to work a hold and it's not just counter, which sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, at some point, but this, you can just relax and enjoy yourself. And you have to have a patient audience. And then you also have to have an audience that cares about both of you guys. And I'm in a perfect situation right here because everybody knows at this point that Bryan is going to WWE.
Right.
We had a PWG show the week before. He cut a promo after the match and he addressed the people that were calling him a sellout. And he said how important it was for him to wrestle on these shows and how important it was for the fans to support companies like this. So people going into this know that this is his last hurrah. I actually believe that this show was booked because he was available for one more weekend. So PWG was like, listen, let's go ahead and
do one more time.
The
cravat. An old Chris Hero staple, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Danielson knows that move very well as well. Go ahead. The cravat.
Well, I wanted to ask about, and I realize we're having some pretty elementary conversation, and I know there's going to be a lot of hardcores who know all of this, but here on adfreeshows.com, we've got a bunch of fans who've just seen WWF and WCW, but they hear a lot about how, guys, these days they'll spend 3 hours on planning out every move of their 6-minute match on TV that night. That's impossible to do in an hour-long match, right? I mean, you can't possibly you may be a couple of sequences, but there's no way you can map out the whole thing, right?
Yeah, only when you have like tags, 8-mans, those type of matches when there are more people involved, then those matches are sometimes called, bumper to bumper.
Yeah.
But you just don't want to call too much because one, it's like, how do you know the fans are going to love every bit of it?
Right.
I don't really know the point of it, of calling every little bit like that. But you have to give yourself the ability to adapt.
Look at the crowd responding to that, boy. They love that sequence.
Yeah, just a little counter out of it. Now he's going to try to get into a bit of a mood lock here. You see him enjoying himself, enjoying the crowd, and
a staple of his in this era.
Yeah, he's going to do the Rick Rude hip swivel, which is a big thing of his, and I use that moment to just roll out of it and take it away. And this isn't anything that we've called in the back. This is just kind of us playing around.
Yeah, it's almost it's like sales, right? You got to give them more of what they're buying, less of what they're not. And so you get in there and you try some things, and if they're reacting, let's do more of that. Oh, they're not buying that, let's do a little less of that, right?
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with calling an entire match or calling a majority of a match, but you have to have a little bit of each, right? You have to it's writing, but it's also improv. You know, you want to be a good writer, but you want to be able to adapt on the fly. And again, this is, you know, I was just trying to one up him with what he just did, and then he just sat out here.
And I love the smiles back and forth, because you're both trying to hot dog a little bit and have a little fun with each other, and the crowd knows it.
Yeah.
Hey, so tell me about, you know, again, I know we're having some redundancy for some folks who are familiar, but Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, this is a major West Coast promotion. A lot of people probably don't know the background or anything about the building or the relevance to maybe one of the announcers on Wednesday night. Catch everybody up about PWG.
Pro Wrestling Guerrilla started in 2003 when a handful of Southern California based independent wrestlers got together, and they were sick of working for these other companies and just all the other BS that went along with that. And they decided to start their own company, and they started under the model of, let's have the best local wrestlers and let's fly in a couple people, whether it's, they weren't even really, they brought in AJ Styles very early on. And then they used guys like Samoa Joe, Frankie Kazarian, and they just had a lot of their own local guys. And their model was to sell videotapes of these guys. Oh, he just punched me right in the ear.
And that's illegal in wrestling. You can't.
Yeah. And the thing about that is that's his payback for me hit him in the ear out of that deathlock we were just in. And again, this is just us. God, he was one of my favorite people to wrestle, and just to go out there and just kind of let things flow.
Dude, you're in fucking good shape.
Yeah. Not bad, huh? Not bad.
That's a rugged, handsome dude right there. Check him out.
I appreciate that. And I've ditched the ball necklace. I had a ball necklace I wore for a while. So my common sense has stepped in. So PWG just started off kind of mom and pop style, and the more tapes that got sold, then they moved into the DVD market, etc. And it just became the place to be. They hopped around and, you know, probably ran about a dozen different venues before settling on Reseda, which is where we are right now. And unfortunately, this building has recently been deconstructed. But a lot of awesome wrestling took place in this venue.
The ring looks a little different than some of the other rings we've seen. It looks like they're using some kind of real rope there, huh?
Yeah, we got real rope. We got some big chunky white turnbuckle pads. Oh, there we go. A little Dean Malenko staple.
I like it.
What
do you call that?
Man, I don't know. I know
it as that Malenko spot too. He's the first guy I saw do it.
Yeah, you trap his arm between your feet, and then you just thrust your knee, you give it a little bit of a pop and kick it back. Yeah, that was a staple from like 95, 96 Malenko, which I'm sure I've seen Bryan do it at, you know, dozens of times, and it's kind of cool I get to do it to him. There we go. A bit of not quite a cross-face chicken wing, but a variation. So what I was saying earlier about putting matches together, there's nothing wrong with, you know, calling some stuff. And I will know more as this match goes along, but I'm going to guess that he and I called some kind of a cutoff, and then some sort of a sequence to go into a comeback, and then settling on some false finishes. And it's really up to us to decide when it's time to go to that next phase. You know, some people call it a 3-act phase. Sometimes people call the 7 steps of pro wrestling. It really just, you know, neither of us is a heel. You can take a heel role in a match without being a straight up heel. So this match is, you know, we probably have a bunch of false finishes called. We probably have a comeback called, but this is just where, all right, let's try to have some entertaining wrestling and as long as the people are enjoying it, let's go with it. And then, maybe some kind of a story will come out of it that we weren't anticipating. That's why you want to give yourself the freedom to improvise certain parts. I have no clue what the hell this is right here.
You're trying some stuff.
Yeah, I'm just trying to cause him pain, and then
Stretching.
There we go. He's got me now.
So, what am I looking at there? What would you call that?
So that is actually, this is before he stood up. It actually is the Indian Deathlock, which I had learned from Dave Taylor, and I'm going to guess he learned from William Regal. Now he's going to try to bridge back out of this, which is very difficult. And also a high amount of torque on my knee. So I'm going to take the easy way out here. I usually prefer to wrestle my way out of moves, but when something like that is cinched in.
And you're right by him.
You can tell I'm in some pain. Rick Knox has to help us out and untie us.
How was Rick Knox as a referee back then?
Oh, he was great, man. He was oh, there we go. Kipping up, and maybe that was not the smartest move. You try to show off a little bit, and then you're like, oh, man, maybe I did myself a little bit too much damage. Yeah, Rick Knox is great, man. He's a, punk rock referee. He'd been around. He used to make fanzines and stuff, and now he's doing pretty well for himself, I'd say.
Yeah, see him every Wednesday night on AEW now.
Here's a fun little Easter egg I'm just noticing. These green socks that I'm wearing.
I saw those.
Yeah, those are from my high school football days. I played high school football in Northmont in Clayton, Ohio. We were the Northmont Thunderbolts. Our colors were green and white, and those are a pair of green socks that I had that I thought would mesh nicely with the set of gear that I have, but they would soak my feet and were not super comfortable, so I really only wore them a couple times. There we go. Now I'm sick of getting shown up by Bryan. I'm going to lash out. I'm taking the aggressor role right now in this match.
We've heard as fans that the heel calls the match. And other times we've heard, no, the veteran calls the match. In a match like this, who's calling what? A little bit of both?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. It's usually who's in control is kind of calling the match. So there we go.
If you're on offense, it's your call.
Yeah. My first big elbow of the match. At this time, I would say I got a little sliding drop kick coming up. There we go. At this time, I had really pushed the idea of that I called myself that young knockout kid, and that was based off of a young Mike Tyson interview.
Yeah.
Where he says that people come up to him on the street and say, "Aren't you that young knockout kid?" Which is like, Mike, I don't think anybody ever said those words to you in that combination. I just thought it was so funny. So I took that phrase and started calling myself that young knockout kid. And I just wanted that spontaneity in my matches. I wanted people to think that my matches could end at any time. I also wanted to be able to
here, tucking the hands. I don't mean to cut you off. I don't remember seeing a lot of that before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So a cool thing about this technique was taught to me by my lucha maestro, this man named Jorge Rivera. Skida was his name. He was one of the Power Raiders back in the day. And just llaves is what they would be called in lucha libre. So he taught us so many little techniques, and that's something that made my work stand out because I was allowed to, oh shit, now it's time for Bryan to unleash on me. Oh, crisscross kick, pun intended. And let's see if, okay. Yeah, there we go. So just a little moment there. I had that burst of adrenaline to cut him back off, but
you're feeling the effects.
Yeah, he just hit me 15 times in the side of the head. So it's okay to fight back for a second, but there we go, flying kick. But you can't forget what has happened before. The audience is forgiving, but only for so long. There we go. Here's a little wing strike. Yeah, I would try to strike people with every part of my body, my wrists, my elbows, my armpit. Oh,
Tell me a little bit about your favorite size opponent. You know, we've heard that sometimes bigger guys like to have matches with smaller guys. They can tell the old David Goliath story. Do you have a preference, height or weight or any of that for your moveset that you prefer?
I did enjoy wrestling smaller guys. I think that was where I was at my best. And speaking of, I'm going to throw him around like a little rag doll with a little ripcord senton. Another technique that was taught to me by Skyday Jorge
Wow.
Rivera.
Dude, that was awesome.
Twisting senton. Just trying to find creative ways to throw my body on top of him. Yeah, I think, and there's another one, a little.
Man, you're showing out. You know, you've got a smart audience and you can do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think my dynamic is always best as the bully, the bruiser, the guy that's taking a guy that's either younger or smaller and just really taking it to him. I think some of my best matches were that dynamic. Not that I can't fight from underneath,
Right.
but
It's hard to be a sympathetic baby face when you're 6'5" or 6'6" or however tall you are, right?
yeah, especially when you can kick ass.
Yeah.
When people have seen what you've done and what you're capable of. Again, wing strike. Something I came up with on my own. Why don't I just hit the guy with my tricep? What do we got here? Oh, a little Misawa spinning back elbow. Not nearly as good as he does.
Oh, damn.
There we go.
Timber.
All right. Very strike heavy.
Fans are not yet reacting to the false finishes because they know this is going to be a long one.
Yeah. And then earlier in the night, there was an incredible El Generico versus Shingo Takagi match that, 35 minutes, I'm going to guess. But so we have to follow that, but try to do something a little bit different, because some people still to this day say that match with those two is one of the best PWG matches in history, one of the best singles matches. So, of course, now Bryan and I have to either follow it, top it. Oh, there we go, little William Regal, and he's pissed.
We've seen this before.
God, yeah, his kicks are no joke. We got.
I like the Muay Thai knees we saw there though before you did the William Regal. That was fun.
Yeah, a little. Oh, it punches me back in the ear. Another callback from that first bit earlier in the match.
Here we go.
Romero special. And I know that if I don't give him my arms, he's probably going to double stomp my legs. So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I think the first guy I ever saw do this was Jushin Liger.
Yeah. Liger was a big part of his offense. Super Crazy brought it out too. Oh, man. And it doesn't matter.
That sucks.
Yeah. There we go. I got to make sure not to fall back on my legs and blow out a knee. So the good thing about having had so many matches with Bryan is, and having seen him wrestle so much, I'm pretty familiar with 90% of what he does. So It goes back to us just kind of feeling each other out and not having to know exactly what he's going to do next until pretty much right before he does it.
If you had to guess, how many times at this point had you wrestled Bryan?
I'd say that we probably had about a dozen singles matches. My first match with Bryan, and I think you'll like this. I first met Bryan in Austria, of all places.
Wow.
Yeah, we were working some shows. I think we did a show in Austria. We did one in Germany for a group called German Stampede. Oh, shit. Little hatch suplex. And then I went over to England to work my first week of shows. And my first match was a tag match in Bognor Regis at one of the Butlins camps. And I teamed with this guy named Kid Cool. Oh, a little diving headbutt. I teamed with this guy named Kid Cool against the American Dragon with the mask and his partner, Cannonball Grizzly, a.k.a. PN News. Can you
Daniel
think?
Bryan and PN News. That is
Yeah.
the most random pairing ever.
Yeah, yeah. My first match ever in England, my first match with Bryan. So that's like 6 years prior to this. So we'd been working on shows together, for the better part of 6 years. Oh man, am I going to get a little relief now? Oh, maybe not.
I'm
So
kind of surprised how loose the ropes look.
yeah. Uh-oh. Speaking of loose ropes, it doesn't matter because
Oh man, it's a collision.
flying elbow. Uh-oh. Now for the first time in the match, we're going to take it outside. What does he have in store? I'm moving out of the way. Big flying knee.
Down go the fans.
landing in the audience. So the worst part about brawling on the floor at PWG is the spilled beer.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm not a fan of beer. It's because it is incredibly dangerous. You just slip and bust your ass. You blow out an ankle, blow out a knee.
Yeah, you're on a hard surface. You don't have grip on the bottom of your wrestling boots like you would a sneaker.
Yeah.
So it becomes ice. It becomes, you're running on glass.
Yeah, you have very little space to move around. All right.
By the way, notice how the fans are now slapping the ring. They're getting into it. Oh man.
Oh shit. There we go. Okay. Again, we're not into the believable false finish territory yet, but we've definitely switched to a new
if
level.
That move would have happened 10 minutes later, maybe. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think they just know that after that moment on the floor, it's just kind of kicking the match into a new gear. That move that I just did, that little release suplex, I call it the crash landing. Because that is what Jason Jett called it in the dying days of WCW. It was Easy Money, who had a 5-match run in WCW. But
what's he up to these days? Do you think?
I don't know, man. But he was a gear maker for the longest time.
You can tell.
It's going for my blockbuster, and it has been thwarted by Bryan. Little Frankensteiner, perhaps.
Oh, roll through.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that. Right into the triangle.
Yeah. At this time, I believe Bryan was living in Vegas, and he was doing a whole bunch of MMA training.
Yeah, he's got an arm in triangle here, which UFC was really starting to become super popular, and wrestling fans were becoming more and more familiar. And now punches.
Yeah, punching me in the temple. Thanks, Bryan. Yeah, I was not super familiar with jiu-jitsu. And you didn't see a ton of it in matches, at least stateside. You'd see a handful of guys in New Japanish that would implement some of those maneuvers. But Bryan is the first guy that I worked with regularly that was doing a lot of that stuff. Oh, man, I'm just trying to get a little relief. He is kicking my ass. We've got Bryan. Oh man,
there it is.
Oh, sorry, dude. Bandera. That's what we call the little pop to the floor. Bandera is the Spanish word for flag. So it's kind of like you're raising a flag.
Yeah.
So what do we think? I'm thinking about doing a dive.
Or a super kick.
Yeah. I just super kick Rick Knox. Let's see what we got coming up. No. Boom, flipping out of the ring. Here comes Bryan, a little baseball slide. Oh, shit. Now there's a big area for him to...
Fans have cleared out. They're ready for him.
Yeah, to do one of his crazy kamikaze Bryan Danielson dives. God, he did these to like Morishima in...
Ring of Honor.
Yep. Oh, there we go. I was able to get a chair up at the last second. Not really a cool thing to do.
That's cheating, Chris.
Yeah. I was just trying not to get blasted again.
Stop cheating, Chris.
So I've heard people mention this before about the leniency.
Of rules.
Yeah, and ref's discretion, etc. So in this situation, well, number one, PWG is very lenient, and sometimes it helps matches, sometimes it hurts matches.
Right.
In this case, we're the title match. The referee doesn't want to call a DQ or a count out on a big important match. So he's likely to give things a little bit more rope than he normally would. But at the same time, it's up to us to not be too egregious where it would lose the effect and just kind of look like bullshit. You've seen it before where you're getting to a certain point and everything's fine, but then one or two things happen and you're kind of like, uh-oh, I'm kind of losing interest in this match. Bryan is bleeding.
I wonder how that happened.
Yeah. Now it appears that we're going into the next phase of the match.
How would you describe the vibe of the crowd at a PWG crowd? We've heard as fans that it was like the hottest, not just literally hottest, but it was just a rowdy crowd. But we've also heard other people say that sometimes, working in front of a crazy, educated, and rowdy crowd like ECW arena fans could be a negative. Where did you lean on the PWG crowd?
I enjoyed it 99% of the time. And just look at them going nuts right now.
Yeah, they're into this. And you guys are telling a story. I mean, my goodness, he's bleeding and you're firmly in control now. He barely made the count.
Yeah, I've said this to you before. In my opinion, no such thing as bad crowd, just bad wrestlers, right? Yeah. So I always take it apart. What the hell am I doing?
Kevin Sullivan, baby, a little trio woe action.
Okay, so I actually remember this, and I think this is the one and only time I did this. I thought it would be a good idea. It turns out my landing is a lot harder. Okay, so I got his arm trapped. He's bleeding. I'm going to try to do a diving elbow. Boom. And then I just was like, oh my God, that sucked. That was so stupid.
But you got to try things every now and again, right?
Yeah. Well, that was one and done for me.
That's the only Chris Hero trio woe right there.
Yeah, trio woe, diving elbow. There's probably somebody a little more fluid, a little more floaty than myself could pull that off. But that was not it right there. The PWG crowd is just like any other crowd in the fact that you just have to find out what they want. You have to find out what they want for that particular match. And I had the privilege of working for them so regularly that I almost always knew where they stood with me, whether they loved me or hated me. I went through both of those phases. Little flying wing attack. Boom. Just a running elbow. That was my ode to Jumbo Saruta. Jumbo would come off with his big knee and he'd do like the big, oh. So that was something I tried to do for a little while. There we go. Little insult to injury, slapping him in the ear, trying to knock his equilibrium out a little bit.
Sure.
There we go. I got a little trio of elbows coming up, I think. There we go. Side of the head. That was kind of nasty.
That was a Dusty Rhodes one right there.
It's so funny. I asked Dusty for his permission to do that elbow, right? Thinking he'd be like, yeah, man, no problem. He's like, you got to talk to Cody.
Oh, that's tremendous.
Oh, there we go.
I think Cody's only used it like once in AEW.
Yeah. It's a tough one to do, man, to make it look good. And, oh, shit. He's firing up. A little shadow elbow. I think we're going to see a running power bomb.
How about that?
Yeah, that was always one of my favorite moves before I became a wrestler. I loved the power bomb. So like the skyscrapers in WCW, or even someone like Akio Sato from the Orient Express, when he was busting out that power bomb in 1990 WWF. I'm like, man, I love Sato.
the running power bomb. I think the first person I saw do it was Liger.
Liger.
But you said that you loved it until you became a wrestler. What happened?
Well, it's an unpredictable one. You know, there's so much momentum. There's so much. Oh, there we go. Floating over into my hangman's clutch, a move of my own invention. It's an STF with an inverted cravat. Just the running power bomb. It's just unpredictable. You know, how big your opponent is, how easily they go up, how far you can run, how you land them. It's just a tough one. I still break it out every now and again. But it's so much more difficult than it looks. I actually gave one to Liger. I gave Liger a Liger bomb, and the bastard kicked out at 1. Yeah.
Well, he was probably thinking, this son of a bitch is hitting me with my own shit. Can't use my own shit against me.
Yeah.
Hey, so once upon a time, one of your things was, I'm going to see how many cravats I can put into a match, and fans would even chant the number, right? 1,
yeah,
2.
Yeah. So I loved the cravat. I just thought it was awesome. Before I even knew what a cravat was, I called it the snapmare hold.
Right.
You grab them like you're going to snapmare them.
Yeah.
And then eventually, you know, I learned how to do it from Dave Taylor, Finley Regal. And it just was like a nice neck crank that nobody was doing. And to the point where sometimes I would grab it and then the guy would flip themselves like a snapmare. And I'm like, damn it, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But because it was my thing, I think I cut these promos in CZW like, oh man, I can get, you know, I have 100 ways to get into a cravat. And I would always try to do something fancy to get into it. Ow.
That's going to be a bad night.
Oh, that's no good.
But yeah, it was like your diamond cutter. I can put this cravat on from anywhere.
Yep. And I had a cravat suplex or cravat leg sweep, you know, cravat, like a,
what Bubba Gump wants to shrimp, you were to cravat.
Yeah. This is a terrifying maneuver.
This is a career ender right here.
Yeah. I used to see head shrinker Samu do this to fools and plant them. Oh, I think I'm able to get away from it.
Good for you.
Oh, he has landed. And another one of my favorite moves, the moonsault. What an incredible move. Thank you, Great Muda. Oh, shit. He is just so damn persistent, isn't he?
Yeah, he wants your nuts on ice.
Yeah. He wants my neck
in a sling.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, that was always a Razor Ramon move too. You know, not the top, but the second rope. He'd do that
right
suplex. Oh man, and there we go. Oh, that sucked.
You didn't like that sell?
Oh man, that just seeing my neck fold that way. I'm glad that I'm sitting in a chair right now and not.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's just when you get lifted up like that and dropped backwards off the top rope, you no longer have control of how much you're flipping, how, you know, what direction you're going. So you just have to, if you feel like you're going to be thrown a little extra far, that's when you can kind of sandbag it a little bit. Or if you feel like it's going to be heavy, you give it a little extra jump so that you land nice and flat. But it's a tough one. We're going to go 1-2 here. Man. Bryan had some bony ass elbows.
Where you at on kick pads?
Yeah. His kicks were something else.
Where are you at on kick pads? What's your opinion of them?
Man, they were all the rage for a while, and you'd see people wearing kick pads that didn't throw kicks because I think they just like the aesthetic of it. Let's see. Can a little bypass? Oh no. A little O'Connor roll. He's got the bridge. God, that is a tough one. The Japanese leg roll. Little Antonio Inoki pin. Oh, man, he just kicked the shit out of me.
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay. So funny thing about that move, he used to call that the brother kick. Tiger suplex.
Wow, the brother kick.
Because he saw some guy do it on a show they were on in Japan, and he didn't know he didn't know the guy's name. So you go, yeah, that one kick the brother used to do, brother kick.
Yeah.
So, you know, a year later, he's still calling it brother kick.
Man, he was big on bridges back here, was he not?
Yeah. So the interesting thing here, this is what some people call the cattle mutilation.
Right.
Some people called, you know, Arms Across America, I think was one they called it for a while. Oh man,
that was a UFC finish right there, an early UFC move. Trap the arms and just elbow the shit out of him.
Yeah. Goddamn UFC. But you know, so cattle mutilation was the name of this guy in Japan. Poison Sawada used to do this move, but Bryan, I'm sure, got it from Great Muda, which is just this bridging, you know, double underhook. What a great move. Yeah, he had such a creative way to go in and out of his 5 or 6 signature moves. You know, whether it was the stomps where he's got your arm or the elbow flurry that we saw there, the tiger suplex, the mutilation. Yeah, he was just a master of weaving those in and out. Oh, now I'm about to get kicked in the face. Oh, maybe not. Maybe just slapped.
At this point, how far away are you from going to FCW?
So this would be a little over 2 years before I was supposed to start with FCW. And Bryan, he got to skip FCW. He had a match or two there, but he never had to move and go through developmental. He just got called up right onto NXT. Open hand slaps can really suck.
Oh. We should mention at the time, NXT was not developmental. It was on a show. It was like Tough Enough, kind of.
Back to the cravat with the suplex there. Got a nice tight little pin. It does not matter. Yeah, seeing Bryan on that NXT show just gave me a different outlook. It made me think like, oh man, maybe there is some space somewhere for me in WWE. That first set of, you know, the Wild and Young. Remember those awesome vignettes they used to have to open those shows? Oh, we got a little schoolboy. Man.
I know I'm asking a silly question, but was there any sort of time constraint? Do you guys get to go as long as you want?
Yeah. You know, I feel like there may have been a 60-minute time limit. And once we get into a certain part of the match, I think the fans are sensing that, well, it's Bryan's match. They're going to go to a time limit draw.
Right.
But when it is someone's last match in the company, you know, they're going to start somewhere else. It's really hard. What do we have here? A little drop kick, a little Dynamite Kid kip up. It's hard to convince them that this guy has a shot at winning. You know, is he going to win the championship on his last night there? You know, so that's a little something you have to work against. And
the only time that probably worked was the Ring of Honor Summer of Punk in 05, right?
Yeah. Death Blow. Another move of my own creation.
Nice name too, Death Blow.
The Death Blow. Yeah. Hangman's Elbow. You get him up for like a Rude Awakening neck breaker and just spin and catch him in the side of the head.
I know you said you were going to tell us another time, but who made your gear here?
So there's a Japanese man by the name of Osamu Oguri. He has a company called Kondo Shoes, and he is most known for making boots, but he made gear for everyone, you know, from Jumbo Tsuruta to Misawa when he was Tiger Mask, all throughout Misawa's career, all the way up until guys like Tanahashi and Okada. You know, all the Gaijin guys would come in and get boots from him, and that's what I started with. But every tour I would do in Japan.
Fans are into that middle finger up there.
Oh, Stone Cold Bryan Danielson there. Yeah, I mean, is that can of whoop ass vegan?
He's going to start chugging almond milk.
Oh, that's a way to shut him up. Kick him right in the face. It's very good to have long legs that can just, you know, a size 13 boot that you can just jack them upside the head. Yeah, so I had gotten gear from Oguri for years and years, and it wasn't until later that I realized what close relationship he had with Misawa. And
wow.
There we go. Oh, another one. Ooh, a little back suplex. He's trying to use that to fire up.
You're going to try to cut him off. Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
Man. Oh man. Again, I was just talking about having long legs, and
Yeah.
it's to my detriment in that maneuver there. Oh,
Yeah,
brother
was
like
an
kick
old
again.
Flex right there.
Yeah. Oh, there's Dr. Death. Oh, here come the
This is going to be
stomps.
brutal.
Oh man, these are something else.
You just got to grin and bear that.
Yeah. Rolling it over into a triangle.
Everybody's on their feet for that,
Yeah.
man.
That guy is really fired up. Oh man, I'm not a super body guy, but that was it didn't work. The power bomb did not work. It is very difficult to deadlift somebody from any position in pro wrestling. So I think it gets done so much now that people are just kind of used to it.
Yeah.
But I think this might be it for me.
Oh man, look at this.
Yeah,
what do you call that?
Good. Some sort of a plata. And I think if I would tap out right now to try to stop some of that pressure on my shoulder, because oh my goodness, there we go. So nobody thought Bryan would win.
Right.
Maybe somebody did, but for the most part, overwhelming majority, nobody thought Bryan would win. And thus ends my PWG championship reign. I had won the title in a cage match with Human Tornado, just a really massive feud for me. It was a very big moment for me to win that belt, and then to have some exceptional challengers over the last year and a half. And then just to end it here. And then this fan, just completely unprompted, he's, a bit special, and just sure enough, he hopped in there, and what a fun moment, right?
Great moment.
We're like, what's going on? I'm glad we didn't have somebody in the I mean, you just kind of gotta
go with it.
Yeah. Gosh, if this would have been a different time, somebody would have
fan raises his arm.
Somebody would have attacked this poor gentleman here. But man, look at that, man. That is so wholesome. That is
great cool moment.
Rick Knox doing his job, and then the fans like, cool, I'm done. Here's Paul London. He's got a blow up Dolphin. They were a very brief, short-lived tag team called the Hybrid Dolphins. I encourage people to go out and watch the promo of those guys, where Bryan is trying really hard to keep a straight face. It's just a very great moment in early PWG. Not early, but yeah.
At this point, Paul London had been through Ring of Honor and made it to WWE, and now he's back on the independents and still one of the best wrestlers in the world.
Yeah, he was just a real natural. And Bryan
probably ahead of his time, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. He's another Shawn Michaels guy. He went to the school down in Texas, and he came a little bit later than that first crew we were talking about earlier. But hey, look, it's Excalibur.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that is Excalibur.
Excalibur, who had to do the ring announcing duties as well as the commentary duties, and I believe right now they're trying to figure out what's going to happen with this championship, because he's leaving. And what does happen is we're coming up on the Battle of Los Angeles, which is their yearly tournament. And now the winner of the tournament not only, receives the prize of winning the tournament, they will also become the next PWG champion.
Well, you said you sometimes hate going back and watching your old matches. What'd you think?
Yeah, a lot of fun. The wrestling bits, I always enjoy so much, of finding yourself in certain situations when you can use certain counters and playing off of what your opponent does something, and then you can kind of hop back and try to do the same thing in your own way. We had a lot of that this match. I feel like this was a part in my career when I started to rely a little too heavily on the elbow strike, and the direction that I take in PWG after this is I go my next couple matches or at least a few of my next couple matches without throwing any elbow strikes whatsoever, or at least waiting until the finish. Just something to add a little different flavor to my matches, because I had used that thing so much and so many times for falses. And then in this match, when, I threw out a dozen elbows and I did not get the win, it was time for me to change it up a little bit. It was fun to look back on this match, and just a privilege to share the ring with Bryan. He's exceptional. Just what a great performer, what great work ethic, awesome technique, very gregarious, and just, you can tell he's having fun in there, especially with this crowd. I'm not sure what he's saying right now, but I'm sure it's 100% heartfelt. And he really did appreciate the opportunity to work in front of crowds like this at PWG.
How special was it for you to have his last match here?
Yeah, to this day, this is one of the matches that people bring up to me. If you go over to Cage Match, it is my highest rated match on there. It's not that particularly means anything, but it does mean that a lot of people enjoyed it. And I am proud of that. And I'm happy to have had this. And, he's somebody that I would love to wrestle again, just seeing what 2021 version of Bryan and myself would get up to in the ring. Yeah, he's always evolved. I was crushed when he had to quit wrestling for a couple years. I was very sad because I knew how much it meant to him, and just the amount of, just the quality of his work, and just the amount of different types of opponents that he is not carried, but brought the best out of in matches. It's a shame that he had to take time off, but I am glad he was able to get through that and come back. He's one of my favorite opponents of all time.
We got a lot of questions about this particular match. If you'd like to ask a question about anything we're doing and keep up with what's coming next, follow us on Twitter at CanChrisHero. That's at CanChrisHero on Twitter. Paranoid says, I'm excited to listen to this episode as this is one of my favorite matches of all time. Do you think the match is the best example of how King Road / ARC style wrestling has influenced your style and career? Both you and Bryan are vocal about the influence of the Four Pillars and their contemporaries had on you. You worked in Noah and with the Noah talent throughout the 2000s. So to this match, it seems to clearly draw upon their legacy and style, though with its own unique flair. What say you?
It's an honor for people to see their influence in our work. When you talk about the Four Pillars, you're talking about Mitsuharu Misawa, Kenta Kobashi, Toshiaki Kawada, and Akira Taue. They were the four men that main evented All Japan Pro Wrestling in the mid 90s, late 90s, and then all the way over to Pro Wrestling Noah, where obviously Kawada stayed back with All Japan, but those other three men and Jun Akiyama had their own, had a different legacy to fulfill in Pro Wrestling Noah. I've watched so many of those guys' matches over the years. I got to spend time in the ring with all of them minus Kawada. Just, you can't replicate what they were able to do, because they had such a strong connection both with each other as opponents, but with that audience. You look at some of those Budokan main events, and it is just electric. Something that cracks me up is Japanese audiences have a reputation for being quiet. And I think that's because they don't react in the way that a traditional American crowd would react, with chants and, booing and bickering back and forth between the audience and the heels, that sort of thing. But what I compare their viewing style, like I compare it to watching tennis, right? If you're, even if you aren't a tennis watcher, if you have seen tennis before, you can see how the audience is just transfixed on the ball, going back and forth. And, and the more difficult the technique, there's a bit of a gasp. There's a, and then just in that moment when they're having a great volley back and forth, and then finally somebody crushes it and gets a point, that's when there's that emotional release, and then you get the clap and you get that, I think that a Japanese wrestling audience is similar to that, and the fact that they are watching the match and they're watching the holds and they're watching the strikes, and they're trying to give it a chance to breathe without responding maniacally. But you will see in some of those matches, in some of these false finishes, the crowd just absolutely loses their mind. It is incredible. When you're in one of those venues and you can feel 14, 15, 16,000 people stomping their feet, it is just unreal. I had the privilege to work in Budokan Hall a couple times, and even a larger privilege to be ringside for some great main events on some of those shows I was on. And you just, to feel that emotion from the crowd is incredible. I don't know if I was successful in conveying what I had learned from watching and being in the ring with those guys, but I certainly tried my best to take that essence and put my own spin on it. And it's hard to do that in front of a different crowd with a different opponent with a completely different context, but you can still have that thought process or that type of energy when you're approaching a match. Those guys were incredibly influential and will continue to be influential in the years to come.
Mostly Incompetent says, having wrestled both, how do Bryan and Zack Sabre Jr. compare as technical wrestlers?
I think that's a great comparison. They are two very different wrestlers, but some of the elements that they use are similar. You wouldn't know it by looking at them, but I would say 100% Zack Sabre kicks harder. And I don't know if that's just because you're expecting a certain amount of power from a kick with someone with the slender physique of a Zack Sabre Jr., but oh my God, that man has kicked me so hard, so many times. Zack is kind of like, I'm not sure if how many of the listeners would be familiar with this reference, but in the 90s there was this videotape series for basketball called the N1 mixtape, where you would have all these street ballers that would be doing these crossovers and these great dribbles and just taking the game of basketball and putting their own creativity and nice little spin on it. And I think of that when I watch Zack transition in and out of his hold sometimes, because Zack could beat you with a hammerlock. He could beat you with a headlock, but he prefers to, slide around your body, wiggle out your other arm, twerk that. He's going to put his foot in the crease of your elbow and he's going to bend that down. And then, guess what? Your ankle's over here. He's going to spin around. He's going to hook your ankle. He's going to crank that almost kind of like a heel hook, which is going to twist your body onto your stomach. And then he's going to grapevine his leg around you. And then he's going to slide around, chicken wing your arm, cross face you. And you're like, how did he do this? How did he do it so smoothly, so quickly, so effortlessly? And I think I'm stronger than him. Why am I not able to resist this? He's just, taking it and kind of similar to we saw Bryan earlier in the match, where he's kind of doing something and just got a bit of a shit-eating grin, as they would say. Zack very much emulates that of, just taking the basic of basics and putting his own flamboyant spin on it. And I would say Bryan is a little bit grittier in the ring, but again, like I said, they both encapsulate the same kind of energy when it comes to pro wrestling.
Every week we like to finish with you dropping some knowledge on us. We just watched one of your greatest matches. You said, according to Cage Match, your highest rated match with fans. What knowledge can you drop on us today, Chris?
I would implore you all to, when you're calling your matches, when you're putting your matches together, give yourself the flexibility to call chunks of your match in the ring, right? I don't think there is a problem with calling your entire match. I don't think there is a problem with, calling the entire match in the ring, right? I think both of those things are good on their own, but I think we get so caught up into wanting the match to be absolutely perfect that we call it A to Z. When you do that, you don't give yourself the opportunity to seize on a moment in a match that you can take it and get the most out of it, right? You can, something that did not exist when you were putting the match together in the back presents itself while you're out there live in front of an audience. You can take that and mold it and play around with it. Maybe this moment, you were getting ready to go to this thing, but now you can, oh shoot, this is getting a good reaction. Let me stick with this, right? So for instance, you don't have to call all of your wrestling counters in the beginning of a match. It is okay to just kind of freestyle out there and do stuff as to what feels natural without ignoring the audience. You don't have to call every last bit of your heat, right? Your heat doesn't have to be like, okay, boom, 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 right? As long as you know where you are in the match and where you're going, you should be able to kind of have the freedom to pick and choose what you're going to do. And also when you're in between false finishes, give yourself the opportunity to make a choice on the fly, right? Because sometimes you call a certain false finish and you're imagining, okay, I'll get a pin on this, and then we'll go to this sequence, and then I'll get a pin on this. Well, maybe getting a pin on the first one won't get the right reaction, or won't get the most out of that reaction that you want. So maybe you have them just feed up into the next thing, right? But that's not something, maybe you call both of them in the back and you say, listen, I'll choose how I feel in the moment out there. But if you don't give yourself the freedom to do that, you're not going to get any better at calling things in the ring and adjusting on the fly. And those two things are very, very important in pro wrestling, because you want to get the best reaction, but you also want to provide the fans with the most entertaining match possible. And sometimes you can make the match more entertaining for them by changing something on the fly. So give yourself that freedom to do so.
Last but certainly not least, we always end on a high note. I loved watching this match with you, but I think people are waiting with bated breath to hear what new music you're going to introduce them to today. What's going to play us out today, dude?
All right, my song of the week is "Last Call" by Kanye West. So this is off of Kanye's first album, The College Dropout, and it is the last track on that album. And following the song, there is this long monologue about how he went from, living at a shitty apartment, and he was making beats for people. Even though he wanted to rap, he was making beats for people so that he could try to make some more money, pay the rent, and then hopefully make the right connections. Eventually, everybody knows Kanye's story. He worked his way up from producing for other people in a basement to getting his own debut album that went platinum many times over, to making some of the most iconic beats in hip hop history. So he tells that story after this song. And I just really love this song. It's my favorite Kanye song overall. He has some great lines in there. You can hear a couple ad libs by Jay-Z, who's in the booth with him at the time. And I think this song encapsulates the old Kanye West, the old backpack Kanye West that everybody was first introduced to and loved. And if that's going to be our song of the week. I love a lot of Kanye songs. For the longest time, he was my absolute favorite when it came to hip hop. If you haven't heard this song before, please check it out, because great beat, great lyrics, and then just great story at the end of it.
And there will be a test. If you don't know what to call a white Mercedes next week, you have failed. We'll see you next week right here on Can Chris Hero Save Wrestling? I love doing that. It's sort of Anchorman style. See you next week right here on adfreeshows.com.
Thank you, Conrad.
Hey, and don't forget, High Spots auctions tonight. Go check it out right now.
6 p.m.
Thanks, man.